Okay, so I'm going to show you a little exercise called the Shakeout. It's a quick and easy, but very, very powerful exercise for helping you get back in your body and loosen up generally. So we start with the wrist, and you're just going to shake loose your right hand. And as you shake, you're going to feel the hand flopping around loosely. So very importantly, you're not trying to move the hand using its own muscles like that. You're actually using your elbow muscles, and the hand flops around. And try to feel the wrist and all the finger joints just opening up. So the image, the intention that you want to use for the joints is a sense of each joint opening up and getting space inside it. So shaking loose the wrist and feeling everything open up. And then you're going to move on, and you're going to try to do the same thing with the elbow. So again, here, you're not trying to move the elbow with the muscles of the arm. You're actually using the shoulder joint, muscles of the shoulder joint, getting the elbow to just flop loosely around. Now, as you do this, and as you do this whole exercise, what you may find is that you get a pleasant sensation of being able to let go. But what you also might find is that you feel, oh, gee, I'm not letting go. So it's very important to realize that's just as much of a success as the ability to let go, because you can't let go of habitual chronic tensions unless you recognize them. So very important not to put yourself down or say, oh, I can't do it, I'm a failure, but instead to say, okay, I'm able to notice that there's tensions that I wasn't aware of before in the elbow. If you can notice a tension, then in time you can learn to let it go. So, loosening the elbow. And now this next one is a little tricky, because you're going to loosen the shoulder joint, but you're going to do that by moving the shoulder blade. So this is the movement. So for some of you, that may be quite tricky to learn to isolate the movement of the shoulder blade, but again, you'll get it in time. You move the shoulder blade, and you let the shoulder joint, where the upper arm bone joins the shoulder blade, you let that go loose and floppy. Now, if we want to loosen the shoulder blade itself, we're going to have to move the rib cage, because the rib cage sits on the shoulder blade and can slide around like this. Again, we don't want to loosen it. We can't loosen it by moving it using the muscles. We want instead to move the rib cage, and perhaps you can see the way that my shoulder blade itself just sort of, or I could kind of, but again, the effort is with the rib cage and the waist. So loosening the shoulder blade, releasing the shoulder blade, imagining the shoulder blade letting go, releasing out from the body. Now we're going to do probably the hardest part. You're going to think about the ribs. Now the ribs attach to the spine and back, and they come out like this away from the spine. So you're going to imagine, or you're going to actually do, moving your spine like this and thinking of the ribs releasing out. So your back is going to end up feeling like it's kind of widening a little bit. Now the arm and shoulder, of course, will move because you're not tightening up and holding the arm, you're leaving everything loose, but your focus is on move the spine and imagine the ribs releasing out from the spine, widening out from the spine, opening up. Now you can also do the ribs in front, because the ribs come from the breastbone here, and they come out this way in front, so you can do kind of the opposite. The feeling of moving the rib cage, moving the chest in such a way that the ribs widen out in front. Okay, good. So now we're going to loosen the spine. So you think the spine is rooted in the pelvis. So spine coming down like so, sacrum, part of the pelvis, the base of the spine at the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to think of the kind of bony structure of your pelvis here, And you're going to move the pelvis in such a way that the spine then moves flexibly, almost like a whip, like a buggy whip kind of thing. So move the pelvis and feel the spine releasing flexibly from the pelvis. Now the final stage, you may not be familiar with this idea, we're going to move from the center. So we're going to imagine the center of gravity, the core of the body, as kind of like a ball. One image you can use is you can use a leather ball full of molten lava. And the leather is lined with Teflon on the inside so it doesn't burn. Okay, so in other words, a very heavy, dense, but somewhat flexible ball that's right in the middle of your body, deep inside, and you're going to initiate by imagining moving that ball inside the pelvis. Now, if you move that ball, then of course the pelvis is going to move as well. But you're not starting by moving the outside of the pelvis. You're focusing on the ball inside. It's a different feeling if you try it. Move the ball, and that ball moves the pelvis. Now we're putting all that together, and we're thinking the ball moves the pelvis moves the spine moves the ribs move the shoulder blade moves the shoulder joint, moves the upper arm, moves the elbow, moves the wrist, moves the hand and fingers. So it kind of looks like this, initiating from here. Now you see that I'm leaving everything absolutely loose, as if I had no muscles at all. I'm not doing this. I'm not making a peripheral effort. All of this is completely free. It's almost as if there was a pulse of energy or a pulse of momentum that comes from my center and flows through pelvis, spine, ribs, shoulder blade, upper arm, lower arm, hand, wrist, fingers, and then goes out into the distance. So, but I'm not going to stiffen and hold the arm there at the end. It's just going to fall completely loose. So now you're connecting from your center all the way to the periphery and out into space. Boom. So now, stand easy, close your eyes, and feel the difference between the two sides. So you'll probably notice that they feel pretty different. The side that you've shaken may feel warmer, maybe a tingling. It probably feels longer, more expansive, bigger. And by contrast, likely the unshaken side is going to feel colder, tighter, more contracted, smaller. Move both arms around in the air a little bit. Notice the difference in the quality of movement. You might notice that the shaken arm moves much more easily, with less effort, in a more fluid and expansive way. The unshaken arm, which, remember, that's the way that your body normally feels, may take more effort to move. It may feel less spontaneous, more restricted, more angular. And in addition, the shaken hand, you may almost feel the texture of the air as you move, as if you're very conscious of the substance you're moving through. Whereas the unshaken arm may not have that sensitivity. Now, as you feel that different state of the two arms, think of it this way. This is not just your arm that feels this way. It's you that feels that way in your arm. So in my right arm, my shaken arm, I feel this way. In my unshaken arm, I feel the other way. And ask yourself, if your whole body, your whole self, felt the way that your shaken arm feels, how would you function in your life? What kind of effect would that have on your functioning? in comparison to if you felt the way the unshaken arm is. All right, so now we'll do the other side. So we start with hand, wrist, fingers. Remember that the hand is just loose and floppy, very, very effortless. And we're imagining the joints opening up and becoming spacious. And then we moved into the elbow, so the movement is coming from the shoulder. And the elbow joint is just loose and floppy and open, completely released. No holding or efforting at all. And now move on to the shoulder joint. So this is that tricky movement of the shoulder blade. Pull your shoulder blade back and abruptly flick it forward while leaving everything below relaxed. It's not easy to do, so don't worry if that's tricky at first. Letting go at this joint here, it's called the glenohumeral joint, where the upper arm bone joins the shoulder blade. Nice and loose. Now doing that movement is going to give you a sense of the shoulder blade, really the whole shoulder girdle, because it's the shoulder blade and the collarbone. If you're not very clear about this, you can feel your collarbone here like this, and then feel the shoulder blade as this kind of triangular bone that sort of sits on the back there. This whole assembly, a kind of girdle or yoke around the rib cage, can move. If you move the rib cage, give yourself an abrupt little twist and feel the way that the whole shoulder girdle flops around or fails to do so. So if you notice as you're trying to do this that, no, it doesn't flop, it's not loose, that's important information. As you pay attention to that and you try to find some way of letting it go, sooner or later you will. And because you're able to feel the tension, you'll be able to feel the relaxation. So again, don't worry about it. Don't try hard. That will definitely block you. Now we go on to the ribs, and this is more of an imagining thing because the ribs themselves are not actually going to flop around. It's a very subtle change. But the idea is you're focusing on your spine, and you're going to give your spine a quick twist, like that. And you're going to imagine that as you twist the spine like that, the ribs, which come all the way out from up here, all the way to down here, 12 ribs, that they release out. Boom. The ribs release out and the back widens and opens up. This widening and opening up of the back is very important, and it's quite tricky to get a sense of. Widen the back. Now we come on down to the pelvis, and we think of the bony box of the pelvis. You can use your hands if you like. You can feel your hip bones that are part of the pelvis, your pubic bone, and your sacrum, which together all form the pelvis. This bony box here, you're going to move the bony box, and you're going to use the bony box to move the spine. So it's almost like you have a buggy whip kind of thing, doing, doing like that, or a fishing rod. Right? This is a handle of the fishing rod. You give it a little twist, and you feel the spine move. And of course, everything else is going to move too. Now, this concept of the ball of energy in the center, around your center of gravity, just below the navel, deep inside, halfway between front and back, right? A substantial, warm ball of energy in there. Move the ball of energy inside the pelvis. Feel how you move the ball and the pelvis comes with. Move the ball and the pelvis. So you'll have a kind of more substantial feeling, a fuller kind of feeling. If you just think of moving the bony box, it feels kind of empty and superficial. But if you go right inside and you feel that ball, move the ball, there's a fuller, more substantial feeling. Now we're putting all that together and we're thinking the ball moves the pelvis moves the spine moves the ribs move the shoulder blade moves the upper arm moves the lower arm moves the hand, wrist, fingers, and it goes out into space. And again, no efforting, no pushing, no holding at the end, no trying to extend. The aim here is to let go as completely as possible, and it's not exactly an effort. The only doing is right from the center of gravity, and everything else just responds to that as if there were a pulse of energy or a pulse of momentum that you're generating here. And that pulse flows through the body and out into space. Great. So now pause again. Stand easy, close your eyes, and tune into the inner sensations wakened up in your body. This is referred to as interoceptive and proprioceptive sensations. Hopefully you feel somewhat more balanced between the two sides. Hopefully you can appreciate that sense of tingling, warmth, openness, expansiveness, freedom in the arms, and maybe somewhat through the spine, through the back, and through the pelvis. Okay, so now the arms are the easiest part to do, so they're the thing to start with. Now we're going to do the legs in much the same way. Now, shaking one leg while balanced on the other one can be a little difficult. If you're struggling to maintain your balance when you do it, then that gets in the way of the letting go. So it's a good idea to actually just put your hand lightly on something for balance. If you find that you really don't need it, that's fine. But initially, just lightly put your hand on something for balance. And then you're going to shake loose the foot. Now, this is a little trickier, of course. You don't want to be doing this, moving the foot with your muscles, with the muscles of the foot. The effort is actually coming from the knee. You're using the muscles of the thigh to move the knee joint, and the foot is dangling loosely. So you want to think of the ankle joint, you want to think of the toes, the toe joints, and you want to think of the body of the foot through here. Everything lets go and opens. So it's an opening of the foot. Now for the knee joint, what you want is put one hand lightly under the thigh, like so from the outside. And using that hand, get the thigh to move up and down a little bit. This is coming from the hip joint. Okay? When you do that, the foot will begin to swing back and forth. So as it swings back and forth, that means that there's a completely free swing at the knee. Okay? Now, as you're doing this, especially as you're learning it initially, and we're taking a little bit of time, if the other leg starts to get tired, just stop for a moment, put the foot down. You don't want to strain the other leg. Okay. So, loose and easy swing at the knee, feeling the knee open up and let go. Now, perhaps one of the hardest joints to let go of, the hip joint. You first need to locate the hip joint. This is not the hip joint, this is the hip bone, okay? A lot of people point here for the hip joint, that's closer, but the closest place to it is right here, the crease of the groin where the leg folds. And then you think halfway between the midline of your body and the outside, halfway in, right in the crease. You can actually feel the pulse of an artery there. That's where the ball and socket of the hip joint is, okay? And the hip joint is a joint that rotates very, very easily in many different directions, but it has muscles all around it, very strong muscles. So what we want to do is we want to shake the pelvis. So it's like the twist. Shake the pelvis. And you lightly suspend the leg. If you have trouble doing this, actually, you can do it on a stairway or standing up on some blocks so that you're up a little bit and you can really just let the leg hang down. but it's not too difficult to do it like this. The leg is just lightly out to the side. Shake the pelvis and let go of the hip joint, almost as if you're trying to shake the leg off your body. Don't try to imitate the movement of my leg by doing this. This is using the muscles of the hip joint. We want to let go of those muscles. The effort is here. Shake it loose, shake it loose, shake it off your body. Next one is we're going to think of the sacroiliac joint. So here's the sacrum at the bottom of the spine. And then right in here where you can feel the two little knobbles of bone in back, right there is the sacroiliac joint where the hip bone, the pelvic bone, the ilium, joins to the sacrum. So it's a fairly rigid joint. There's only a small amount of movement at that joint, but that movement is actually very important. So like the thing with the ribs, this is more imagination, right? The pelvic bone, the ilium, is not actually going to flop around. But you're going to think of your sacrum here, and you're going to shake your sacrum. So it's a different idea than shaking the pelvis, although it's a very similar movement. So you shake the sacrum and imagine this joint here opening up and releasing. Now finally, you're going to lift the hip bone. So your weight is going to be on this leg, and I'm going to lift the hip bone, okay? And then I'm going to drop it, like this. So no weight on this leg now, it's kind of like I'm hip shot here, I've dropped this. There's a stretching here. So it releases the muscles between the spine and rib cage and the pelvis. So lift, drop, lift, drop. And now finally, the icing on the cake, lift the leg, hold the weight of the leg with your arms. Shift the weight gently towards the foot and drop the foot completely, shifting the weight onto it as you do that. Now this is definitely a tricky movement that takes a bit of practice. Don't do this, dropping the leg while keeping the weight on the back leg. You could kind of hyperextend the knee a little bit if you do it wrong. Okay. So you're taking the foot, you're shifting the weight, dropping onto the leg. And as you drop onto the leg, it extends completely down, and you feel like all the weight of your body, boom, drops down into the leg, leaving your upper body free and light. So that's really important in Qigong generally. It's an important aspect of this exercise. Drop the weight so that you become light and free. Try one more time. Drop. Now again, just stand easy. Close your eyes. Tune into the difference in feeling between the two sides. You'll probably feel that the leg you just worked on feels quite different from the other one. Pay attention to three things. Notice the difference in the way that the feet on each side meet the ground. So you might feel that on the shaken side, it's almost as if the foot merges into the ground, or there's a kind of openness or feeling of a flow and connection to the ground. Whereas in the unshaken side, it may feel like the foot is just resting on the surface of the ground. Very different feeling of relation to the earth. Then at the other end, pay attention to how the legs connect up into the body on the two sides. And you may again feel that on the shaken side, there's a feeling of it's all one piece. There's a connection right up through into the body. Whereas on the unshaken side, the hip joint might feel like a division or separation. And then the same thing in the knee. Notice the feeling of the whole length of the leg on each side. And again, on the shaken side, you may feel like the leg is just one long tube. Whereas on the unshaken side, the knee joint may feel like an interruption, a bit like the segments of a bamboo. No. So enjoy that feeling of connection of your body from your pelvis right down into the earth. And again, notice how that changes your sense of yourself. Now we'll shake the other side. Foot, ankle, toes, shaking from the knee. Let the ankle, the toes, and the whole foot open up and go loose. Send your imagination in there. Imagine it opening. Now the knee joint, with the aid of your hand, get the thigh to move up and down and feel how the leg just swings like a pendulum. So you're not trying to make it happen like this, right? You're just letting it swing loosely like a pendulum. Opening and releasing the knee. Now shake the hip joint loose, shake the pelvis. Remember that you're shaking the pelvis like so. You're letting go of the hip joint as if you're trying to shake the leg off your body. Let go, open the hip joint. Then the same kind of feeling, shake the sacrum and open the sacroiliac joint in back there. And then lift the hip bone, drop. Lift, drop. And now the whole leg, hold the weight of the leg, drop. All your weight drops away into the ground so that you float up. It's similar to the idea of, in a hot air balloon, throwing the ballast, the sandbags, throwing the sandbags over the side. You throw the sandbags over the side, and the balloon floats up. And then pause, close your eyes. Feel the legs. Feel your connection deep into the ground. Now we'll shake the tail. So you can bend the knees a little bit and you can give yourself a nice long tail and shake it. So like a dinosaur tail or a kangaroo tail. Let it hang right down. Shake the tail around. You can lift the tail back and drop it. You can tuck the tail under and drop it. Let the tail just hang. No effort. That means that the whole of your lower back through here lets go. And now do the same thing with the head at the other end. So feeling like the head kind of bobbles up on top of the spine here. So by moving your body a little bit, you can feel that the head can flop around loosely. You're not doing this, and you're not doing this. You're just getting the head to bobble a little bit loosely right up on top there. Now finally, and we'll do this last bit fairly quickly, feet apart a little bit. You're going to drop your head. And with this bit, be cautious if you have any back problems. If it starts to hurt you in any way, then don't do it. Be cautious. Drop the head. Let the weight of the head take your spine forwards. So you're going to hang completely down forwards And then you're going to shake from your hips. You can imagine your spine is like a string of wooden beads, and your hips is the top bead. So you shake that bead, everything else goes loose, and make sure especially your head goes loose. Gravity now is lengthening your spine. Then pause. And now to come up, you're going to roll up from the bottom. The crucial thing here is that you don't lift your head. So you tuck your tail under, and you begin to roll up from the bottom. You see, I'm not lifting my head. Tuck under, roll up from the bottom, and it's as if each vertebra comes up and back and stacks on the one before. Up and back and stack, up and back and stack. As you come towards the top, don't lift the head. Up and back and stack, up and back and stack, up and back and stack. And then the head just automatically comes to its balance point. Just stand and feel your whole body. The arms, the legs, the spine. Feel everything unified. They all emerge from your center of gravity. Center of gravity goes up through the spine, out through the ribs into the arms. Center of gravity flows down through the pelvis into the legs. Center of gravity flows up the spine, up and out the top of the head. So your energy is radiating out from the center of gravity, down into the earth, up towards the sky, and out into the world around you. Gently allow your eyes to become open, and keep that same feeling. The energy going down connects you into the earth. Going up connects you to the heavens. Going out connects you to the world of living beings around you. Now I'm just going to show you, that was fairly long. I'm going to show you a brief version. This is how quickly you can do the shakeout and still, really get a lot of benefit out of it. Hand, wrist, fingers, elbow, shoulder area. Pause and feel. Hand, wrist, fingers on the left side. Elbow joint, shoulder area. Pause and feel. Foot, ankle, toes, knee joint, hip joint. Pause and feel. The other side, foot, ankle, toes, knee joint, hip joint. Pause and feel. Tail, the bottom of the spine. Head, top of the spine. And then the whole spine. Just wiggle the whole spine around. And pause and feel your whole self. So that's like 30 seconds. Then you can also do this. 2 seconds. Everybody can do the shakeout. Thank you.